Hello, my name is Thor Olson. I am recording this video to discuss Chapter 2 reading for MBA 733 International Strategy, St. Ambrose University. For Chapter 2, the chapter begins by discussing culture. Culture is defined by a set of shared beliefs, norms, and values that guide the everyday life of a group. Cultural norms are what we can and cannot do in a society, are communicated through cultural symbols, stories, and rituals. Culture is pervasive, meaning that it pretty much invades and has an effect on pretty much all aspects of life, and that includes business. So that's why it is so important to understand the culture in which one chooses to do business. And one must understand the different levels of culture, which is discussed in the book. The first level they discuss is the national culture, which is the dominant culture in society, and that's usually the culture of the majority, or at least the culture of the people in power. And as most business takes place, within national boundaries and are subject to each nation's rules and regulations and customs, this culture level probably has the greatest effect on international business in general. The next level we'll discuss is the business culture, which includes the cultural practices, business etiquette, all the norms, values, and beliefs that pertain to doing business within a certain culture. The final level discussed is the occupational and the organizational cultures. The occupational culture refers to the culture among the various professions. For example, the teachers have a certain way, a certain culture among themselves, firemen, police officers, politicians. So that's what they're referring to there. An organizational culture refers to the organizational structures that are formed by a group when they have to deal with internal and external issues. They essentially have to come up with organizational cultures within the organization to deal with things, and therefore a culture comes from that they pass on to others so they don't have to deal with the same issues. Well, that sums up the cultural levels and the basics of culture. But a manager needs to be able to diagnose a region for its cultural environment, and the book gives us 3 tools to do that: the Hofstede's model, the Globe Project, and the 7D culture model. The first tool, the Hofstede's model, pretty much compares and rates cultures using 5 dimensions. The first dimension is the power distance, or how a culture deals with inequality within its culture. The second dimension is uncertainty avoidance, or how a culture, or to what extent a culture tolerates uncertainty in uncertain situations. The next dimension is individualism versus collectivism, and that focuses on the how individualistic a culture is, or how much they're about the group or the whole. Masculinity is the next dimension, and this refers to if a culture has masculine or feminine traits. The masculine traits being assertiveness, dominance, male dominance, and achievement is emphasized, whereas feminine traits are more about nurturance, responsibility, less about being aggressive, less competition, more about working together. And then the final dimension is long-term orientation, and this refers to how a culture perceives the passage of time. You know, it's not the same in every culture. In my anthropology studies, I learned about a tribe down in Brazil where the people would stay up for 2.5 days, and then they'd sleep for a whole day. And to them, that was normal. They didn't have this structure of day and night, sleep at night, you know, wake by day, do business by day, you know, relax at night. They just literally stayed up for days at a time, and then when it was time to sleep, they'd sleep for a whole day, and people slept at different times. And, you know, the whole tribe worked as a whole. Everybody rested kind of at a staggered time, and, you know, the sleeping, you know, at the structure that we have was just different, so they perceived the passage of time differently than we did. So that's Hofstede's model. The next model discussed is the GLOBE project, and this involved a bunch of researchers collecting data around the world, and they used the Hofstede's model as its basis, but they included two more dimensions: performance orientation and humane orientation. Performance orientation is the degree society encourages its members to innovate, improve, and strive for excellence. And the second dimension, humane orientation, is to what extent does the second dimension, or to what extent does a culture expect a person to be fair, altruistic, caring, and generous. And using these tools, experts were able to group all of the nations into 10 geographic and cultural clusters, and this can be used by managers to help understand the traits of a nation that they are contemplating doing business in. And the final tool that managers use or can use to identify the cultures is the 7D model. As with the previous tools, the 7D model consists of 7 dimensions, and a lot of them are very similar to the ones that we've heard. Essentially, you've heard just a long list of all these different dimensions that experts believe that they can use to identify a culture. But you know, I hope that they understand that this is just for research purposes, and these models are nice, but it would be folly to assume that one could just use one of these or all of these models and understand a culture and hit the ground running with full knowledge of what they should expect. You know, they need to have other management teams, somebody with a good understanding of the culture they're going into. Experts will be needed, people on the ground are needed, local support. You know, the model should only be a jumping off point, so to speak, and if a company doesn't understand that, then they might find themselves blindsided by the reality that they'll find on the ground. So that concludes Chapter 2. Thank you.